Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Emergent Essence Dynamics webinar number 9. It is June 5th, 2019, and the webinar topic today is Relationship Archetypes. Is all the world a stage? So, today we have joining us Carola, Alina, Paul, Jim. What did this evoke for you? What brought you on? I'm not even going to say anything what this is about yet. Just what did this evoke for you, the title of the webinar? And I know I'm launching in with a big question, so take a stab.
What triggered me a little bit is it's usually to see beyond the mask that people are putting up when in connection to others or in communication with others, and how they behave, and how this kind of breaks apart in time.
Okay.
When you talk about archetypes, then it's like, what is behind it?
Okay. Great. Who else? What else is getting evoked here?
For me, I'm always interested. I like the concept of archetypes and frameworks. Both, what do we do unconsciously, and then how might we then create conscious behaviors in terms of how we show up? So archetypes can all be the pattern that we fall into unconsciously, or they can be the pattern that we create when we are intentional about how we show up in the world.
Awesome. Great. What else is coming up for you guys? And what you're bang on, and I'm going to be covering all of this through the hour. So I'm just looking at what's coming from you first, because you're helping introduce all of this better than I am.
Maybe
Okay.
one thing I would like to add is that actually it's how we get aware of the other one, or how we see that other person.
Okay.
Also,
yeah.
what we are bringing into the or on stage. When you say is all the world on stage, it's what we bring on stage and how we see things, and it's a very subjective visualizing, and then maybe
this definitely has to do with how we focus our awareness, where we're putting it, and how expanded our awareness is. All right, and I'm going to walk you guys through that, the different effects of the different focus we hold, and how expanded the awareness is will impact the relationship, ourselves, and our world. Was there anything else to add from Alina or Paul? If you got nothing, just give me a shake of the head. Okay, great.
I would be interested, pardon for the delay, I would be interested in how the archetype plays into the relationship dynamic directly, like during a scenario, maybe having a conversation or a coaching, like what specifically is the benefit of touching the archetype or making it conscious?
That's the whole point of the webinar.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll touch into applications a little bit. And so what I'm going to give you is a little bit of foundation on what we mean by relationship archetypes and relationship dynamics. A little bit of foundation on moving through different levels of awareness and different levels of consciousness, and then how to pull that all together in how are relationships behaving and how are they affecting yourself and the world, and how everything is actually a mirror of each other, and then how do we apply that, okay? Definitely when we're moving into an archetype, like we can look at what's happening and then say, okay, so what's behind it? It's as if, is this following a template, some kind of a larger pattern, larger template that's commonly occurring in other places, okay? A programming, so to speak. We need to cultivate new types of awareness in order to start seeing that and using that. And then we can become intentional in how we play inside these relationships, how we play with the events around us, and how we participate in our world. So when we have these let's say higher levels of awareness, what I mean is it's more expanded and it's less personal, okay? It's more transpersonal. Then dramas will have a purpose. Conflict will have more of a purpose. This is then where we can get into a more productive state. And we don't have to take things so personally as if it's life or death and it's only affecting me, 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 me. It takes away some of our natural narcissism that can happen when we start finding ourselves hitting obstacles in the middle of challenges, in the middle of difficult relationships, and we think why is this happening to me? It takes us out of the victim mode, and it puts us in a greater place of learning to actually let these relationships and the world become a teacher for us. And the other thing is, the tagline, "Is all the world a stage?" puts into question, okay, so is this real, or am I living in a movie? Is this a simulation? When I start looking around at archetypes, I'm seeing these things everywhere. I'm starting to see patterns. Is this staged? Is this like living in a dream, just going through an obstacle course, learning lessons? Right? It again is another level of becoming depersonalized. All right. So that in fact, what we think is the real world starts to seem a bit unreal, but then it can put us in a more playful state with our circumstances and events. Again, when we depersonalize, we have more room for resilience. So we can play more resiliently, less reactively. We can take ourselves out of being a perpetual victim and into more of a co-creator. How you guys doing with that as an intro? Okay, great.
That's good. A question on this note, can we say the archetype is the name of the game?
No, I'm not there yet. Paul, you're jumping ahead. I'll let you, that'll become clear in a second, okay?
Perfect.
All right. So just a brief summary of what are we looking at. So we're getting an overview of the key elements of a relationship dynamic. Okay, so this means what's happening in a relationship, what's happening between people, and how that dynamic moves events away from drama and onto an archetypal level. So there is a difference, Paul, between a relationship dynamic and an archetype, okay? And a relationship archetype. So I'll clarify what I mean by those three things, okay? There are some archetypal relationship games, meaning universal games that we play, and there are common masks and shields that we use when we are playing reactively inside those games. So when we're driven by fear and reaction, there are common masks and shields or attack and defense devices that we use, okay? And I'll lay those out. We'll get just a glimpse into some of the tools and applications we can use when we work on the archetypal level. And this includes working with reconciliation and even building resilience through archetypes, through relationship dynamics, all right? I'm really just going to list them, talk about them briefly. I'm not going to say how to do it because it's so bulky, right? And that's what the EED courses are for, is to learn those tools and applications. And along the way, some tips to help you depersonalize dramas and neutralize those reactive behaviors that show up, okay, when we're in those relationship games. It's a basic overview, all right? Now, I know all of you have been on these webinars before. You're familiar with EED, so I'm just for the sake of the recording, I am going to go through what is EED and how does this relate to relationship archetypes. So EED is a fractal-based model for working on relationships, communication. It applies to coaching, leadership, facilitation. But everything is based on fractal patterns. A fractal meaning it's a repetitive pattern that works on a small scale, large scale. It's the same pattern on all levels, all right? So we look for repeating patterns, and then we can start shifting those patterns. And that is a way to create transformation. It is also a holistic approach, meaning we're looking at multiple levels, and we leave out nothing. There are no accidents, there are no mistakes, there is no separation. Everything is interconnected. And this is especially true when working with relationship archetypes. The relationship archetype is following a fractal pattern, and that can work on the world scale all the way down to the individual scale internally, okay? So what we're doing is when we're working with those patterns, we're working at the most fundamental level, driving our human dynamics, which drives our behaviors, which drives our conflicts, which drives our relationships, which also drives our transformational and creative processes. The whole purpose of this is actually not for transformation. Transformation is a byproduct, okay? It's an after effect. What we're doing first is looking at what is here and then restoring resilience and well-being and autonomy in the person or the group or the relationship. From there, then they're working with the pattern. Then they have more autonomy inside that pattern. It starts to open their consciousness, and then they can start participating in the pattern and shifting it. And that's where the transformation begins. So what we're really doing is reconciling our ego with our essence. Our essence is our more permanent, timeless self. It's like the higher consciousness in a person, or you could call it infinite awareness, or it's just, to be very simple, the part of you that is aware of yourself. All right. And our ego is more of our identity and personality. It wants to cling. It wants to play games. It wants to control. Whereas essence is incredibly resilient because it is connected with everything. It has a sense of permanence. So when we reconcile the two together, they're no longer at odds. And therefore, there's far more acceptance from the person, of themselves, of the situations, of their patterns, and that creates a liberation where eventually nothing is taboo, meaning there's no need to fear anything. Fear can still come up, but we're not acting from fear. This is the difference, okay? So what we're really doing is not transformation, but we're taking everything that is and we're doing a process of transmutation. It's like, take the lead and the shit that's out there, turn it into gold. It's just a rearrangement, really, of the consciousness, of our relationship to things. That is an alchemical process, okay? And so some obvious applications of this is for coaching, leadership, mediation, facilitation. This is a healing process, but this can even be applied to sales. It can be applied to cooking, dating, anything, because it all is based upon how we handle ourselves in relationship. Any questions or comments? Okay. I'm assuming not. All right. Okay. So this is very fundamental to understanding how we get into archetypes, all right? Some of you have seen this before. There are different levels of truth that we can act from and act upon. Now, each person has their own narrative, their own story. What this really is each person has their own individual point of view. And what we tend to do is say, that's the truth. According to me, this is my truth. This is the way the world is, all right? If we keep reinforcing that story again and again and again, we end up sealing ourselves in a small bubble of reality, all right? So this is like one piece of the pie. This is just one slice, and each person has their own slice of the pie, all right? So what's really happening is we are interpreting the world and others according to our set of preferences, rules, opinions, upbringing, experiences, all of this. It's reinforcing a belief system that we've developed over our lifetime, all right? And if we keep it closed, we're not very open to other truths. And this brings us to the second level, okay? When two people with two different stories, two different belief systems meet, they may agree and they'll get along, or they may disagree. And this is where we have truth in opposition, okay? And this is one source of conflict, where one is trying to convince the other, no, believe my truth. No, believe my truth. My truth is better than yours. My truth is more true than yours. All right? This is what creates polarization and division, okay? So each one is fighting or standing for their truth, because in their world, it is true. In this little bubble of reality, that is the truth. But in this other world, this bubble of reality, that is the truth. So how do you reconcile it? All right? So how do you reconcile it is we drop into a further level, which is what we're calling a dream level, a dream reality. This is where things are less rigid. This is now where what used to be in opposition actually can become complementary, where if this is black and this is white, and in this world everything has to be black and it's good, but anything white is bad, evil, doesn't belong, and it's the exact opposite in this world, right? Everything must be white because that's good, that's right, okay? And black is evil, can't have any of it. Here, black and white work together to bring about a larger truth, a larger reality. Okay, so black and white are interdependent. All right, so black and white could represent all the degrees of light. Okay, or if it's hot and cold work together to express all the degrees of temperature. Okay. So when we enter a dream reality, we loosen our position, meaning we're willing to be open to larger truths. That means we open our bubble, and now there can be more of a free exchange. This is why we call it truth in flux. It's a more fluid reality, all right? And the further level down is the level of source, where it's not absolute truth. It just means everything is a truth. Everything, whether it's paradoxical or not, is reconciled as a unified truth, all right? This is the level of all potential, all right? We can access this, but we don't necessarily live here. But when we connect ourselves to unified truth where everything can be true, then it can start shifting the dream, where we can start choosing truths. And then here we can play a different game where we decide, okay, here's my position. And then it changes my story. And if I have free flow between these four levels, I'm in a more creative state of reality because the bubble is no longer fixed. I can have conflicts, but then I can open the conflict into a creative act, and then I can come back to source where there's unity, okay? So these four levels together are creating a rich diversity within an all-encompassing unity. And what we mean by diversity is it allows us to have singular truths, to be an individual, yet still be all interconnected and unified, knowing we're all coming from the same source. How are you guys doing with that information? Okay. Now, where do archetypes live? It lives here, in the dream reality, okay? The game where we're in opposition, this is where we take sides. We're polarized, we're opposed. So it's you against me. Here, I'm very rigid and I'm still in my closed bubble, all right? And everything that happens to me, I take personally. Me against you, me against the world, even me against myself. But when we drop into dream, it's as if we can take that drama and put it up on a screen and see it like a movie, where now I'm not taking things so personally. I'm not so rigid. I have a bit more resilience and acceptance. I can start to see the bigger picture, how everything is interconnecting and working together to show me, okay, there's a larger message here in the conflict. Whatever that my enemy is actually is complementing me. It's provoking something out of me, like a strength or a contribution or a lesson. And without that enemy, I wouldn't be bringing those strengths out. For example, who would Luke Skywalker be without Darth Vader? Do you understand? So, Darth Vader is the archenemy of Luke Skywalker, right? But without Darth Vader, there would be no quest. Luke Skywalker would not go on a quest, right? He would have not cultivated his strengths. He would have not trained to be a Jedi Master and have mastery of the Force, and then in order to use it and battle against Darth Vader. I mean, without Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker would have had no purpose. Do you understand? Even though he may not like Darth Vader and he might fear him and then say, oh my God, you're actually my father, what's going on? But on the archetypal level, it's a necessary drama to learn something, okay? This is what we mean by archetypal level now, okay? And we need this fluidity to get there. Any questions or comments?
Question, Troy. So
yeah.
as I'm hearing it, I'm understanding, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that there isn't one right state. So we do exist relatively in story, in game, in dream, and source, and it's a question of how are we conscious of whether we're connected to those things in any one moment. So then how do we create, in your words, how do we create that free flow between these states?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Normally, most people are stuck in their story. A lot of people are stuck in their story. They may not even be aware, consciously aware of a game. They can feel a game going on. They can feel manipulations, right? But they're not seeing the dynamic of the game necessarily, okay? Some people are aware of story and game, but we rarely depersonalize and move into these lower levels of dream and source, all right? Yes, if you're doing meditation, things like that, I mean, maybe you're opening your awareness, but to have a conscious access to these and then to move fluidly between all of them takes training and discipline, all right? And this is what we are teaching in EED, is how to not only recognize the levels, but then how to start moving between the levels, okay? And move others between these levels. And it is not to say that one is better than the other. They all work together, okay? So I want to be very clear that we're not voting, okay? We're not voting that, you know, story is bad and game is bad. It's just that we tend to take those too seriously and we become too rigid, all right? Does that help?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now, so I also want to show you, okay, so we have 8 levels of awareness in EED, okay? So, and I wanted to show you these upper levels of awareness because this also has to do with archetypes. So just let me go back here. The first level of awareness, these are very ego-based, meaning personal-based. So, and this is common in psychology and coaching, the first 3 levels, where it's in the first level of awareness, I'm focused on myself, just me. And this is what's going to reinforce my bubble. This is where I'm acting from my judgments, my opinions, right? Everything is just reinforced here. This is a good example of level 1, me focus. Now, if I put my focus over there directly on the other person, meaning I'm not acting from here, but I'm really, like, through fascination or curiosity, I'm looking at what's going on over there. That's a you focus, okay? So now I'm able to expand my awareness to look over at you, bypassing judgments, okay? Level 3 is a global focus, okay? This is where I'm focused now on what's around me, what's in my environment, okay? I don't have arrows to show that here. And then where EED starts adding levels that may not be in other systems is with this level 4, which is the relationship awareness. What's in the space between us, okay? Whether it's rigid or whether it's fluid, it doesn't matter. Whether it's a game or a dream, what's going on in here? This is who are we together? That's the relationship awareness, or what we call the relationship dynamic, okay? Then we cross a line into what's transpersonal, meaning beyond self. Because even with these 4 awarenesses, me focused, what does that have to do with me? You focus, I see you, but still, what does that have to do with me? Global focus, I see what's around me, but still, what does that have to do with me? And same with relationship. I'm aware of what's between us, still, what does that have to do with me? They're still all very ego-focused. It's not to say it's bad, but it's very centralized in the self. Now, the next level of awareness, and I represent it like this, it's like what's bubbling up. It's like what's coming up from source. What are the little impulses, the little beginnings of something? Okay, it's almost like being able to sense a couple seconds into the future, saying, aha, it seems like a fight's gonna break out, or it seems like these 2 people are going to fall in love, all right? So we represent this by little bubbles, things that are bubbling up. If you look at a little glass of champagne, you know, where the bubbles come from. They start from nowhere and then they rise to the surface. So what we're doing is capturing little impulses, whether it starts in me, you, the environment, or the relationship. We capture it and then we manifest it, okay? Just by simply putting focus on it, it will show itself, okay? We use this a lot when naming dynamics, all right? And accessing archetypes. Next one is source awareness. So it's just the opposite. We can take the full expression of something and trace it back to what's the origin or original intention. So somebody could have an outburst of anger. Now, it's very easy for us to interact with that and judge it. But what we're looking for is, okay, so what happened just before that? Or what was the pure intention behind that anger or violent behavior, right? Or what's the pure intention behind that laughter and embrace, okay? So this will lead us more into a source, okay? What this helps do is, one, it starts to depersonalize dramas. It starts to neutralize dramas and take us into a more resilient state. What it actually can do is you can take conflicts and start to dial them down into what's truly trying to happen here. What's behind everyone's toxic words and behaviors, right? And it's really coming from an essential place. And what I mean by that is there's from source to how it is outwardly expressed, there's been a distortion, okay, a disconnection. And so things get distorted, and this is what aggravates games, more or less. So this is an important level to work with, source awareness. The next is cosmic awareness, how everything is interconnected. So this brings into question, you know, is all the world a stage? So what's happening between me and you could be happening between other people. I am even looking around and I'm seeing similar patterns everywhere, telling similar stories, all right? This takes us into systems awareness, which means relationships of relationships. It takes us into synchronicity, where events are participating in what's happening in the conversation. There are no accidents, no mistakes, and how everything is interconnected and working together, okay? So this is a holistic and fractal level of awareness. So that, you know, like, for example, you know, in stories, you know, or in a novel, the main character gets very sad and they walk outside and it's raining, for example. This is where the environment is participating in the whole experience, all right? And when we look around and we keep our eyes open in this cosmic awareness, we will see events differently. They're like signals, teachers, messengers to what we need to pay attention to. All right. The final level, and this is what we're cultivating in EED because it's most applicable for coaches, facilitators, leaders, is this meta-awareness. Okay. And this is an awareness of omnipresence, meaning you have free access and a fluid movement between all of these previous seven levels, where it's as if they're happening simultaneously. I'm aware of me, you, environment, relationship, what's emerging, what's coming from source, and how all of this is interconnecting together. So my awareness is so expanded that it's freely moving into all of these points. It's almost like a shamanistic consciousness, all right? And you're pulling information from all levels, all right? So how does this apply to relationship archetypes? We're looking here, the cosmic awareness, all right? So that we're working with level 4 and level 7. What's happening in the relationship dynamic, and I'll define that shortly, and then put that up on a screen and see how is that, where is that dynamic showing up? How is it everywhere? Okay. It's like the world is a mirror of what's going inside me, and I am a mirror of the world. Macrocosm, microcosm. Okay. How you guys doing with this? Just looking at time. Any questions, comments?
Actually, one question.
It's very good so far.
Okay, go ahead, Carola. Yeah.
No, it's what we're doing actually. It's more moving in less in cosmic awareness. If we touch cosmic awareness, which is maybe a good thing, but meta awareness to achieve that in coaching, I never had that. I would really.
Yeah, keep going.
This, so I find it a bit difficult to apply that now on the practice. In
the workshops, I take you a little bit through that, and in the new editions of the modules, I'm doing this more and more with the groups. A suggested exercise is to walk yourself through the 7 levels. Like, just go sit on a park bench, or go sit in a restaurant or someplace not too noisy, not too much action, and just practice shifting your focus from yourself to something out there, like indirect focus, like me, you, and then widen the focus to everything around you, and then look at what's in between, then look at what's emerging, and then start tapping into source, and then widen out and see how everything is connecting together. And then just practice moving your points of focus until they start to all blend together. And that you can do 5 minutes a day. It will shift how you're perceiving your client. A lot of coaches just get locked into this level 2 awareness of just focused on you. They're not aware of what's around them. Maybe they are sometimes, but they're definitely not aware of the dynamics. They're not necessarily aware of what's emerging. I'm saying consciously and in a disciplined fashion. There is a semi-awareness there, but you can cultivate this by just having a disciplined practice where you point your focus intentionally. And it's just armchair work. Does that help? Does that help answer your question or your observation there, Carola?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. And so it's just a simple daily practice to do. And I don't recommend doing it in a nightclub because there's way too much stimulation. Way too much. It'll feel like you're on drugs, really. Paul, you had a comment.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So let's look at the relationship dynamic. This is level 4. What's going on in level 4? Okay. So now a great way to start looking at this is go to a cafe and watch people. Watch people who are in relationship with each other. couples sitting at a table, people walking by, you know, whatever. And what you're looking for is, what are they doing to each other? The actions. Are they arguing? Are they embracing? Are they accusing? Okay, so these are verbs. Look for verbs. What are they doing to each other? Okay, and then start looking at what's the energy between them. So, for example, maybe they're fighting, but there's a playful energy between them. Okay, or maybe they're complimenting each other, but there's a very angry energy between them. Okay, so the action and the energy do not have to logically match, and this is what can make things very rich in a relationship. Okay, then you can start looking at what's the status between the two people, meaning someone's older, someone's younger, someone's smarter, someone's taller, someone's shorter. Okay, and where we're really looking at what status is, who has the power now in the relationship. And this can shift back and forth. Somebody always has more power. In a dynamic, it's very rare that it's balanced and even. It might get there for a microsecond, but then it shifts, okay? Status really is very fluid, okay? So this idea that everyone is equal, no, they're not. Potentially everyone is equal. Potentially everyone has, you know, all the same gifts, but in the expression of a relationship, no. At different times, somebody is smarter than the other, okay? You may disagree with me on that, but this is what makes our dynamics so rich, is status, okay? So then from there, you're gonna start seeing a polarity, meaning two opposites working together. So if they're fighting, for example, well, one person is attacking, the other person will defend, okay? So these are opposites working together: attack and defend, dominate and submit, okay? So you're, chasing and being chased, persecutor and victim. These are examples of polarities, okay? So when you see action and status and polarity together, this is what's creating a game, all right? Now, the other elements are, so how do we dress up this game? How do we invest in the game? The game is more about what's happening, what are they doing? And then these other elements are about who are they? So here's where we'll have an archetype, like who are they together? Okay, is this a professional relationship or a personal relationship, for example? Then, who are they to each other? What are their roles? Okay, this could be a boss and employee, it could be a mother and a son, but we dress ourselves up in roles. Now, when we're talking about a relationship dynamic, we're not talking about the literal outer world roles that people have. Okay, so I can have a relationship with my father, okay? So our archetype is family, and he's my father, I'm his son. But in our dynamic, it could be as if I'm his mother and he's a small child and I'm mothering him, okay? Or he's asking me to take care of him. That's the internal dynamic. So be very clear about outer roles and inner roles, okay? Outer archetype, inner archetype. Is that clear for you guys? Okay. Next is story. Now, in the outer roles, okay, we have a history together, okay? You know, I've known my father all my life. We've had events and that. So there is history locked in. But in the internal dynamic, if I really want to make rich this sort of mother-child dynamic between us, then I have to say it's as if, right? I never wanted this child, and this child is always begging for my approval, okay? I can make up a background, okay, to help invest in the role in the archetype. And the other thing is, as the game plays on, it's creating a story, a play-by-play, okay? So there's two levels to story, meaning background, let's say imaginary background that supports these inner roles, plus for every action and polarity that's showing up, that's also creating a story drama, okay? How the relationship is playing itself out. So that's what we'll call, say, investment in the game. Dress up the game, okay? Now, then the final element is the dream. So what we mean by dream are two things. What is trying to happen? This means, so there could be lots of actions, there could be a polarity going on, but it's sitting on something, okay? Something wants to burst forth or erupt or bubble up, okay? For example, we could be teasing each other, but what really wants to happen is a fight, okay? Some aggression, but they're both sitting on it. Or they could be teasing each other, and what really wants to happen is they want to hug and embrace and kiss and fall in love, but they're still sitting on it. Do you understand? So the dream is what's bubbling underneath this game. What's trying to happen? The other aspect of dream is, what is this relationship trying to become? By playing the game, what does it want to evolve into? Okay? So that's on a little deeper level. So by erupting into a fight, maybe then what it wants to become is a deeper connection, more intimacy, and then to discover love. Or maybe by teasing each other and falling in love, right? Then again, there can be a deeper level of intimacy. Maybe then we teach each other things. Maybe we become more wise and creative together. So this has to do with working with those levels of awareness of what's emerging and what's at source, okay? That's how we play with dream. And when we enter this dream reality, the game kind of starts to dissolve or disappear. And that's where we're in that fluid reality, where the roles now become complementary. It's as opposed to oppositional. And it's in the dream place that we build resilience, and it's in the dream place that we discover the archetype. What is this relationship actually representing for each person? Okay. How you guys doing with this? Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
I'm feeling like I'm drinking from a fire hose.
Say it again, Jim.
Feeling like I'm drinking from a fire hose right now.
You're getting a crash course of some of the things we teach in Module 1, for sure. But it's foundational. Okay, let's look at some common archetypes and polarities. Okay, so really with the archetypes, meaning who are they together? There's really 4 categories. It's a personal relationship, meaning we can be friends, okay, even strangers, but more like friends. It can be a professional relationship. We work together, we're colleagues, okay? And there's many roles that can come out of that, okay? It can be a family relationship, parent-child, for example, okay? Then separately, this is related to personal, but I've made it as a 4th category, lovers, okay? Because it's beyond friendship, okay? So when you say it's a husband and wife, well, does that belong in the family or is this lovers, right? So, you know, which archetype is it, right? This is why I'm separating archetypes from roles, okay? When we say role, don't get bound by gender and sexual orientation. You can have 2 guys together, and one of them can be a more female role, like a mother, okay? You can have a guy and a girl, and the girl feels like a guy, and the guy feels like a guy, and they're falling in love. So, right, so don't be bound by rules when we're looking at archetype and role, okay? The polarity, meaning the opposites. This is the basis of the game. Here's some common polarities or opposites working together. You'll have the persecutor victim, all right? And this can be about power, master and slave. This can be about domination, okay? Predator and prey can be about control. It can be about the chase. Like another example is cat and mouse, okay? The cat chasing the mouse teasing the cat, all right? You can also have a mentor-student relationship or teacher-student relationship where somebody is helping or fixing or rescuing or teaching another person, okay? That's the mentor role, and the student is the one absorbing and learning and taking the information, taking the help, getting the problems fixed. There's more. I mean, can you think of others in the top of your head? Think of opposites. Any others that come up for you? I'm just naming 4 here as examples. Yeah, anyone? Go ahead.
We might have a guest and a waiter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Jim, did you have something to add there? I was wondering if you were unmuting or not.
No, so I was just, I'm trying to think, was recently coaching someone that this would have been super helpful for. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think through, because the one character in the game is playing the the frivolous person, and the other person is playing the rigid, like, oh, we've got to have rules, so we got to have protection, and
right.
But I'm not sure the proper terminology.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Let's see. How would I call that? So you could have the king and the fool, or the king and the clown, for example, right? Yeah. This is a classic polarity for comedy, where you've got the straight man, and then you've got the crazy silly guy, and they foil each other, right? So they make each other funnier. Okay, the more straight and narrow the straight guy is, with his straight delivery, he provides the facts. Then the fool or the clown provides all the surreal silliness, and they bounce off each other. So something like that, like the responsible and the irresponsible one, right? Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, so you guys get an idea now. So don't lock status and role into, like, victim is not always low status. All right, you can have a high status victim who has all the power in the moment, a low status persecutor, okay? You could have the mother is the victim and the daughter is the persecutor, okay? So don't start locking things in, all right? Okay? This is what makes it so rich then, right? So that you can have those 7 elements, and they work together, but they're not codependent on anything, okay? That's what's important to remember, okay? Now, when people play the game, okay, this is all about reactive behaviors. So there are 4 common masks we're gonna wear, okay, on the game level. And so when we want to aggravate the game, we want to aggravate these masks. So one of the first things we do is we fight each other, or we flee each other, or we escape each other, meaning let's search for greener pastures, search for something better, search for a fulfillment. Search can also look like I'm creating a distraction, I'm changing the subject. Like, oh, Jim, don't confront me on that. You know, what about that nice picnic we had yesterday, right? That's an example of search escape. It's like, not avoid the issue, it's more like change the subject or take us to a place of fulfillment. And then there's cling, which is, well, but you know, Jim, you used to be such an honorable guy. You're so strong. You know, that's what I need from you is your strength. That's clingy. Okay, I'm clinging to something I don't want to let go of. It can also show up as stubbornness, like absolutely not. I'm not going to agree. I'm standing for my rights. Okay, that's clinging is stubbornness. All right. Fighting, it can look like even rebellion. So can clinging. Clinging can look like rebellion too. But I fight you on this. I counter you. There's no way in hell you're going to get what you want. Flee is avoidance, all right? Or just run away, okay? Is that clear? These are 4 typical behaviors of polarity, right? Okay. I'm just looking here at the chat. Somebody wrote something. Oh yeah, you're gonna have to run. Okay. Jim will have to run. I didn't realize, wow, where we are. I've got so much information here. Shields. This is really important. We actually use both the mask and the shield. Now, what the shield does is it makes us impenetrable, or it's something to hide behind or protect ourselves from. 4 typical shields are: 1, apathy. This doesn't affect me. All right. Indifference. I don't care. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not getting involved. Denial. This isn't happening. No, I'm not doing that. Right? And numbness. I don't feel a thing. No feeling here. It's different than apathy. Apathy is I won't let myself feel. Numbness is I can't feel, or I won't. I can't access it. What happens is those shields try to slow the game down, or prevent the fighting, the fleeing, the searching, the clinging. They try to. It's a way to slow the game down so it de-escalates, and all it does is create more resistance and pressure. All right. When we aggravate the masks, this gets the game revved up. All right. So that we can actually then start accessing the dream. Shields are going to prevent dream from coming to the fore because it's trying to just numb everything down. All right. How you guys doing with this information? So when we see games, we're going to see these masks and shields, and these can work together. Another way to look at this is if you're familiar with John Gottman's work, The 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, he names 4 toxic behaviors which are based on attack and defense. The 2 attack modes are criticism and contempt. All right, that can be an example of fighting and fleeing, along with some apathy and indifference. And then the other 2 are defensiveness and stonewalling. And defensive simply to defend, or and that can be an example of search escape or clinging, along with some denial and numbness. And stonewall means a total shutdown. That's like denial and numbness altogether, and as a way of fleeing. Okay.
Mm-hmm. How should we deal with shields? Can we also try to aggravate when they're displayed?
Yeah, you can. So if there's a shield, you can come at it harder. And then there's another way: go behind the shield, which is the next thing I want to show you. Well, I want to run through this very quickly. This is what the game is based upon: judgment. I'm reinforcing my world, you're reinforcing your world. If you try to penetrate my world, I'm going to put up my shield or show you a mask, right, to deflect. So we're using our masks and shields to try and conquer or be conquered, okay? This is the win and lose. It's all based upon judgment. We are acting from judgment, meaning we're acting from this area. We're not acting from what's really going on with the other person. This is what games are all about, okay? And that's where how the masks and shields reinforce the judgments, okay? Now, how do we open the game to start entering the dream, okay? This is game behavior. The first step is through acceptance. What is happening to me? What is happening over there? And I'll have judgments about it, but I need to put the judgment aside for a second, not act upon it, and move into acceptance. Okay, you're attacking me. I don't like it, but it is what it is. I'm being attacked. When I have some acceptance, I start to open my bubble a little bit. Then I can become fascinated, meaning I'm putting my attention over there on the other person. Then I can start to take something back into myself. Now I've got a cross focus going on. It's going to start to open their bubble. What happens is it starts to calm them down, and they start developing a cross focus as well through appreciation. Okay, you're attacking me. I'm fascinated with what's going on. Actually, there's something of value here in the attack. That might sound weird, okay? But when I get into that mode, I'm actually becoming more resilient. I'm not playing into the attack mode as much as I am more fascinated with the attack mode. Therefore, I can start to look into what's going on in this world and have a little bit more compassion. Then I can start to begin to enjoy what's going on. Aha, it's not really an attack. It's an opposition. They're waking something up in me. They're challenging me. I don't have to feel so defensive now because I can start to enjoy their challenge. Do you understand? Now I can engage. Now I'm more in dropping into a dream level where I'm not so positional of being so defensive while I'm being attacked. I can start to participate with it, see where this is going, and we can start to co-create, okay? And this is when we're entering dream level. It's a co-creation, and there's more fluidity, and there's a more willingness to understand how we are complementing each other as opposed to opposing each other, okay? Another way into game and dream is there are always two reactions. Okay, you have an action. You say some words to me. I'm going to have an initial impulse, then I'm going to have a calculated reaction, and then I'm going to act. Okay, we work with this a lot in modules 1 and 2. What's going to take you into the game is reaction 2. This is your mask, your shield. Okay, so to go back to Paul's question, how do you get beyond the shield? Well, before you put up the defense, before you said, I don't care, before you said, this doesn't affect me, what happened? What was the initial thought, the initial feeling? Okay, this is reaction 1. That's how you get behind the shield. All right, and what this will do, it will lead us into dream. Okay. Reaction 1 is a more source-inspired, truthful response, which will lead us into dream territory. It also means it's more vulnerable. Therefore, they have to be more resilient to engage with reaction 1. Okay, we need to build resilience in order to get here. We have fake resilience by using reaction 2. This is using our masks and shields. It's protective, okay? So sometimes we need to aggravate our reactions. Number 2, we need to play the game enough to get them strong enough so we can start to build some awareness about reaction 1, okay? Before being on the attack and fighting, how did this affect you? Where? Oh, I felt sad. Ah, okay, let's engage with the sadness as opposed to the angry fight. That will lead us into a different place. How are you guys doing with this? I'm being very quick, okay?
It's a little bit like to see what is the wish in disguise here, the reaction 1. Okay.
Yes, yeah. And so to know, like, here's our outward behavior. Where is the outward behavior coming from? Usually from reaction 2. If they're fighting, fleeing, clinging, or search escape, okay? Or if they're apathetic, numb, in denial, or indifferent, right? These are symptoms of reaction 2, okay? This the first impulse is a deeper truth, okay? And it's going to bring more unity into the relationship, okay? But there's a risk involved because that means they're opening their bubble, okay? And they're letting the other person in. So if there's no resilience, they're not going to go there. So yeah, the dream is always behind the game. The reaction 1 is always behind the reaction 2. So this requires some source awareness, okay? Sure, the guy is attacking me, saying very harsh words, but behind that, he looks hurt, okay? If I appeal to his hurt, if I just acknowledge it, even just to myself, it might soften him a little bit so he could start dropping into dream with me, okay? Sounds easy. It's not always that easy to do. I mean, this is why we have training modules. We have a whole conflict course on this. We're just working with these reactions, how to read them and react. So the idea here is not to favor the dream, but play the game, visit the dream, then revisit the game, and then return to dream. And we want to go back and forth. And so it's by choosing our focus. Do I interact with masks and shields, or do I interact with reaction one, what's behind the mask and the shield, okay? And then there are techniques to sustain this dream longer and longer, okay? So that we can start shifting the game itself and start moving into a reconciliation phase. And so it's once we can start accessing the dream, we can start looking at the archetype where it's beyond ourselves. Maybe we're playing out something for each other in order to learn something, so we become each other's teachers. Whereas here, you're harming me and I'm harming you. You're inconvenient for me, I'm inconvenient for you. We're learning nothing except trying to win. And it feels like win-lose. So when we're moving into archetypes, we become complementary to each other for a higher mission or purpose. And this is why we want to toggle between game and dream. I'm seeing we're a little bit past the hour. Can you guys stay a few more minutes?
Yes, very fine.
Okay. And if any of you need to go, you know, then you can just you can drop out, leave, and you're going to get the recording. So where am I going next here? Yeah. So really, what do you think are our main games? Where all games really trying to play out?
Well, there might be like a universal survival game,
Yeah.
like, getting to work, earning money, and making a living.
Yeah. So all games are really about survival. It's a way for us to survive. It's also a way for us to express ourselves if we incorporate dream. But on just game level alone, it does feel like survival, life or death, win or lose. Other ideas? Well, if you think of domination games, master and slave games, what are those about? Any ideas?
Maybe about control and self-protection.
Yeah, control, definitely. Power and control. Self-protection will be involved, yes. Now, how about codependent relationships, need-based relationships? I need you. I'm going to help you with this, and then you can say thank you in return. Okay, if you don't say thank you, I don't like you. Okay, what is this about? The need-based, codependent, helping kind of relationships. Why would I help you? What's the benefit I might get, whether I admit it or not? Why would I rescue you? Why would I be your hero?
Validation.
Absolutely. Now, I might not admit that. Oh no, I'm a selfless hero. I do it all for you. But inside, I feel very noble. Right? I can take on a high status. I'm your rescuer. I'm your savior. It makes me feel good. So it's validation. I feel like I exist. So our two main games are about validation and power. Validation, I exist. Tell me I exist. Okay, and power is I make sure I exist. So I have to control everything so that I will ensure that I survive and exist. Making sense? And these two games could be mishmashed into one, okay? right? But those are our two main games we play. Now, what would be the main dream? What's our universal dream? If we could reconcile power and control and validation, what would become of the world, of us?
To live into our purpose, maybe.
Okay.
To leave a step or a footprint.
So some legacy, sure. Make contribution, purpose, okay. If I am trying to love you, what am I looking for? Ultimately.
Safety.
Okay. What else? If I'm trying to love you, I'm flirting with you and you're rejecting me, and now I'm feeling not valid at all, but I still pursue you, what am I really looking for? And the same thing, what if I'm trying to pick a fight with you and you're resisting and not responding, and I keep coming at you, criticizing, what am I looking for? Yeah, go ahead, Carola.
To be seen. I mean, to be seen, validated.
Yeah.
I notice you, significance.
Yes. Now, take it beyond self and into relationship. What's the relationship trying to become? If both people are feeling seen by each other, now what happens? If people are feeling secure together, what happens?
They can co-create.
Co-create, yeah. And in order to co-create, they need to be connected. So we're looking for connection. So really, all relationships are dreaming of unity. Whether I fight you or whether I love you, I'm looking for unity, okay? And this is, and two ways of trying, two distortions of unity can be sex and violence. Okay, sex, obviously, because it's connecting, trying to be as one, but violence is doing the same thing. It's another way of trying to destroy you. I have to connect with you. So in a way, I am unifying with you, okay? That sounds weird, but for me to actually, have violence, get into a fight, punch you in the face, I literally have to connect with you, okay? So it's a distortion of unity. If we get over the game, over the violence, we can come into deeper connection, deeper intimacy, and experience this unity, okay? So this is important to remember on the archetypal level, is no matter what's going on here, it's about power, control, validation, and ultimately it's creating unity, all right? And if we can open our eyes to that and start asking those questions, how is this a way towards unity? That helps us depersonalize what's going on, okay? And when you come from a place of acceptance and fascination, you're reducing the level of hate and rigidity in order to start exploring those questions. So I'm a little bit out of time, but our most timeless drama here is the victim-persecutor cycle. Okay, almost every drama contains victim-persecutor, whether it's master-slave, rescuer, a savior and a drowning person, helping and helpless, teacher-mentor, it's victim-persecutor, okay? And we all start as an innocent, as a victim. This is the archetypal drama we go through. When we're born innocent. Then through experiences, we get victimized by the world, by our parents teaching us lessons, and we cry and they say no, we feel victimized, okay? So we are receiving persecutions, and we start to gain, we begin powerless, and then we slowly start to gain awareness, gain power, gain survival, until eventually we hit a line where we can now flip roles. and become a persecutor. Okay, and then we persecute, meaning exact revenge, retaliation, give people a taste of their own medicine, and then eventually we start to let that go, and we start to return to innocence. And here we can be a victim again. Now, the problem here is this is a cycle. For every victim that's born, there must be a persecutor. Okay? And then when somebody becomes a persecutor, they create a new victim. Okay? How do we stop the cycle? Any ideas? How are you doing with this?
Well, it's understandable, but how to stop the cycle? Got to think about that.
Yeah. So think about it. If you've been victimized by someone, let's say you're picked on at school, there's a bully, right? And they keep picking on you. And then you go take some karate lessons and all this stuff to defend yourself. And then you see your persecutor get vulnerable. He gets hurt, or he trips and falls on his face. And you now have the opportunity to get him back. Okay? This is where you're doing this role switch. He's moving towards the victim stance, and you are gaining more and more power where you can be the persecutor. So there is a line that you can cross. Okay? You can choose to exact revenge and retaliate, but now you've become a persecutor. As soon as you become a persecutor, you've created another victim. Okay? Now you got to roll through this end of the cycle. And that means this victim is going to move towards persecutor, and they're going to approach this line, and they'll have the opportunity for revenge. It's like, so this person's been abused, and now they can finally escape, and they have a choice. Do I forgive and let it all go? Or do I get them back? They might even escape, but they still want, I'm so victimized. I got to pass that energy on to somebody else, okay? So they might not persecute their persecutor, but they may persecute somebody else. They might take out that frustration on somebody else, okay? It doesn't matter who's the real victim and persecutor here. It just means you're taking on a role and expending the energy. So when we work with reconciliation, what usually will happen is the persecutor will be the first to truly apologize, to say, look, I'm done, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. Do you understand? They'll get vulnerable. Now, I got to plug my Mac in. Hopefully it's not going to shut down my computer. So at this point, the persecutor can ask for forgiveness. The victim may say, absolutely not. I do not forgive you. You don't know what horrors you did to me, right? I need to give you a taste of your own medicine. Okay, now they've just crossed the line to persecutor, okay? And they're going to perpetuate the cycle. A lot of victims stand at this line and they put their toe over and they don't admit that they're being a persecutor. This is the blameless victim. This is the hidden persecutor. They're kind of the worst because they're really not acknowledging that they're crossing the line. They'll say, I hit him in the face because he hit me first. Right? I'm a victim. No, when you hit him in the face, you became a persecutor. So this goes back to the Bible and what Jesus said, turn the other cheek. One of the most difficult things to do is the persecutor can persecute you, and when you have the opportunity to retaliate, you say, no, we're done. I'm tearing up the contract. You took one of my eyes. You have both eyes. I'll let you have both eyes. I have my one eye. I'm okay, and we're done. That's very hard to do because what's happening is the victim only went through half the cycle and they have to give up this other half. That's a huge sacrifice. Whereas the persecutor went through the whole thing, it does feel finished naturally. So this is why the cycles perpetuate, because it's one of the most difficult things is to drop the cycle at this point. And we naturally want to balance the scales. So it's against human nature, in a sense, to forgive. And this is where reconciliation and forgiveness is very, very difficult to achieve. But it's not impossible. Yeah, go ahead, Alina.
Troy mentions that actually the whole cycle can be stopped, starting with the persecutor. Can it be done?
It can be done with the
victim side.
It can. I'm saying usually, most naturally, it's going to be the persecutor first.
Because I see quite many, let's say, clients of coaching who feel themselves as victims in a relationship, and hearing their story, it might sound like that. And so how they can, from their victim stance, break this cycle.
Right. So you put it one way, you put it to the test. For example, let's use this as an example. I had a client, they said, well, I feel constantly betrayed by this person. But I feel so done with this. I just don't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And I said, well, so you're holding resentment, right? You know, well, he should be this, that, the other. I said, all right. So they want to persecute, but they're afraid to. Okay. Another way to go was, all right. So they said, I just want to like be done with this. I said, so are you willing to forgive? Sure, if he says, I'm sorry, right? That's still not, that they're still persecuting.
Yeah.
I said, and what if he never says, I'm sorry? Are you willing to forgive first, to let this go? Well, I suppose I could. Yes, actually, you know, I've had enough of this. I really want to do that. Okay, I forgive you. We're done. I said, no, we're not. So think of it this way. He's betrayed you, meaning he's stolen this, stolen this, stolen this. He's a thief. So are you able to forgive a thief and still let them be a thief always, and still invite them into your house with no locks on your door? Well, that means he could steal again. So have you forgiven? This is the true forgiveness.
Right.
There's no need for them to change, no need for them to feel my pain. It's done. And they can always be a thief and come back into my house. That sounds like being a doormat, but I mean, that's the true forgiveness.
But,
all right.
Troy, one question. What about a trained mind, meaning managing your mind? If the victim tells the persecutor, look, you really hurt me, well, the persecutor will have the choice between I don't care, or being really, you know, like touched by the fact that he obviously hurts that person.
And this is what we're doing in the conflict work, right? So what you described was reaction 2 and reaction 1. Reaction 2 is, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
And reaction 1 is, wow, that touched my heart. I never realized. Here I am, blah, 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 right? Okay. That's more reaction 1. So, and when we do conflict reconciliation,
but can it be also vice versa, saying that, okay, I don't care, that's a reaction 1, and then having to be socially polite and do something else? That's
a game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Political correctness, social politeness, it's all game. It's not truth. Do you understand? So we can pretend like we're forgiving one another. Okay. The point is, are you, when a victim forgives the persecutor And when the persecutor forgives the victim, they're both letting go of their roles.
Right, right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is why if the victim is forgiving the thief, they no longer see the person as a thief. They no longer feel like they're being stolen from. This is why they can invite them in their house.
Yeah. And
they're so resilient that even if the thief is still stealing, the victim doesn't feel like it's a theft. Okay, this is very, very, very difficult to understand. Well, otherwise, we're falling into a role. Like, you see, he's stealing from me again. Well, now you're in the game. You've just put yourself in a role. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, and in fact, this red line can happen anywhere. The point is, right? The most crucial point here is when the victim is about to turn into persecutor, and when the persecutor is starting to turn back into victim, that's an opportune time for reconciliation and forgiveness. Okay. So I just added that as most of, or all of our archetypes are following this cycle. Okay. This is a way to learn from our games. Is learn from, what did the persecutor teach me? What is the victim teaching me? Okay. When we can start exploring there, we can move closer to reconciliation and forgiveness. Don't make forgiveness and reconciliation a goal. Rather, learn the lessons from the cycle. So quickly, what are applications? We can work on our own inner games, our own inner polarities, because we have these dramas with ourselves. This applies to conflict management, definitely. External, what are the games people are playing with each other? We can also work remotely with relationships, okay? We do this in Module 3. You can have a client, they're having a difficult time with somebody else. We can play the game remotely. It'll change both people. And then what I call the double movie. 2 games happening at once that perfectly synchronize. You have your game, I have my game, and we're pulling into each other's games, and they're happening at once, okay? That is typical of conflict resolution. And then moving into reconciliation processes, where we would start moving deeper into getting off the victim-persecutor cycle. Another application is endowments. So if I see you differently, I treat you differently. This is about projection. If I endow you differently or project differently onto you, you begin behaving differently because I behave differently. We do positive endowments, okay? Negative endowments create games. Like, you're a bully, so therefore I must make you a bully by allowing myself to be bullied, even though I don't want to, okay? I'm taking low status, giving you high status, right? That's a negative endowment. The hero's journey is working more with that cosmic awareness. So all of these relationships I'm running into, they're all creating a pattern. They're all creating challenges and obstacles, and all of these are teaching me something. They're cultivating different strengths. And ultimately, I have a crux moment that I go through in order to release hidden strengths and learn hidden lessons, okay? So that's more on the cosmic scale. We can learn how to deauthorize the game by learning how to deal with manipulative bids. People try to fish, bait and hook you into their game, okay? And then we can, as a final reconciliation, release the contract. That's a very, very, very final phase where it's like, no more victim, no more persecutor, we're done. Dissolved. That's like dissolving the game. Those last 3 things, manipulative bids, deauthorizing the game, releasing the contract, is what's included in the conflict course that we teach. The inner polarities, remote relationship, some conflict management, endowments, hero's journey, those are in our regular modules. So, in summary, whatever seems to be in opposition is actually complementary. This is a way to think about relationships. When things are complementary, they're actually accomplishing a higher mission than we can possibly imagine when we are locked in our stories. So we need to get out of our story and more into a dream level. So when we're tangled up in a drama, just open the bubble and look at the archetype. then we see that all the world is a stage for our benefit, learning, and mastery. It's not that the world is against us. The world is actually on our side, presenting challenges for us to evolve from. Rather than be in reaction and in opposition to things, ask yourself these simple questions. Whatever's happening, what is this trying to awaken in me? What is the lesson to learn from this? And when learned, what will this release or reinforce in myself? So those are three great questions to temporarily step out, move into the dream place, put the thing on a movie screen in front of you and say, okay, so when I watch this movie, what's it trying to awaken? What's the lesson? And what will this reinforce when learned? And finally, there's an infinite richness of diversity within an all-encompassing unity. And this is why we have games and dreams. The games and the stories is what creates the diversity. But all of it goes back into source. It's all an expression of unity. Any final comments or questions here? What are you left with? I know it's a lot of information. I know I went over time.
Well, I'm having a question which is going a bit beyond this webinar. I will keep it for a later time.
Okay. You can email me. Yeah. So, I mean, you've all taken module 1, so this is more for the benefit of the recording, but we have module 1 coming up in Frankfurt in July, in September in Munich, and in Paris in October. And this is where you'll get a foundation of these relationship dynamics. Working with conflict and reconciliation and with the archetypes much more actively happens in our Reconciling Conflict course. You just need to have taken module 1. So all of you are eligible for this. So consider coming in December. Carola, you took the conflict course, right?
No.
No, I thought for some reason you may have. Anyways, well, it's in Munich, it's in December.
It was Silke taking the conflict.
Yes. Yeah, she took it in twice, in fact. Yeah, so she took it once and assisted it. So
I was interested in your leadership.
The facilitation course, right. That's coming up in late September. I'm opening the registration in probably a week or two, and I'll give a big announcement. And I don't know what to do for the next webinar. So if you guys have suggestions, you can suggest to me now what to do for the next webinar or the next few webinars, or just send me an email with your ideas for topics, what you'd love covered in a webinar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Think of things that you're running into in your regular work and life and coaching and leadership, and send me some suggestions, because I'm brainstorming right now topics for the rest of the year, and I'll decide in a couple days what I'm doing for July, but I still have August, September, October, November, and December to program. I've got the dates, just not the themes. So great. Well, thank you for staying a bit over time. What are your final comments? What are your what has inspired you here?
What I find really inspiring is how you were talking about switching between game and dream and archetypal level and story level, and then using the different points of views, or as you call them,
Awareness. Yeah.
Awareness. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will try to be more conscious of these things and see how the information we can get from these levels can benefit the journey.
And the first thing, depersonalize, that's through acceptance, fascination, and then just draw information. You don't need to act upon the information, but just get information and then start asking yourself, okay, so what's going on here? What's the lesson that's being presented? Not necessarily to act on it immediately, because sometimes we act too soon.
Yeah, I see that too, that just observing and watching can give such a richness to what is happening around, and that the focus is also kind of shifting automatically to what is important at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Yeah.
What I'm still fighting with a little bit, but I think I told you already in the modules, is to really, to identify the archetype. Sometimes I'm already in the polarity situation, or I'm already confronted with masks and shields, with the reaction number 2. And then to really go back and see what's the archetype. I think this is when I'm just observing, it's very difficult. I'm in the coaching situation or in the conversation sometimes also like that. The archetype presents itself after all that. So it's I'm just not identifying it immediately. What am I in this conversation for the other person, for example? That's difficult.
Right. So a couple things there, just as a quick answer. One, like I said before, practice the levels of awareness, particularly practice observing dynamics, practice moving into what's emerging, what's at source, and how is everything interconnecting. That helps much more, because then you'll stop trying to figure things out and you'll more just collect information, okay? Number 2, look at either the polarity, meaning what is this person asking from me? Okay, who are they asking me to be for them? That's one way to start looking into the polarity. Like, are they asking, it feels like they want me to rescue them. Oh, so I've got a polarity, okay, right? So that will lead you into an archetype, right? You're the rescuer and they're the drowning victim, okay? You can also look at, ask yourself, it's as if we are family, or it's as if we're coworkers or professional, or it's as if this is personal, or it's as if we're lovers, right? That helps dress it up. All you need is one of those 7 elements. And it's really important to say, it is as if. As if opens your imagination, and then you start to take little impulses, little clues. That's the level 5 emergent awareness.
Okay.
And then you just play with it. And then you can experiment, right? And we teach you in the modules how to run the dynamic, how to play with it, play the game. But it's the very first step is dare to collect some information, and it might feel like you're making it up at first.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Elena.
I think it was very helpful, the final, okay, the last minutes, because I also have the same issue of not being able to go through with paying attention to what is going on there at several levels.
Okay. You might be able to start seeing things and then start looking into yourself and finding your own reaction. And practice opening the bubble through acceptance and fascination, okay? You don't need to try this with the most difficult people in the most difficult situations, okay? But in an easier situation, or when it's low consequence, if you feel like you're trying to win this game, know you're in game level. Then you can stop and say, all right, well, what if I don't make winning the game or losing important? What's the dream? What's trying to emerge here? And that means you open your bubble first. Okay? You cannot wait for them to open. They won't, because then you're just continuing the game. Okay, it requires humility and resilience for us to open our bubble first. Okay, so yeah, this is a lifetime of training and discipline to do, and all our courses help you through that, and then you take it beyond the courses and apply it. And I'm going to keep doing these webinars and keep doing community calls with the alumni so we can get more and more and more information and practice. I'm not claiming you can learn this all in one weekend, but you certainly get introduced to a lot of stuff in the weekend modules. Yeah. And then it's up to you to continue to practice and apply. If you have more questions, please email me. I will be sending you guys a thank you email along with the recording. And also a nice deal and discount for the upcoming courses. So for all of you, you know, for the Reconciling Conflict course, you'll get a deal. And for others that receive the recording, they'll get a deal on Module 1 in the series. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to see all of you again. And I hope that you'll join us next time in July 15th. And otherwise, feel free to contact me for any other questions you have. And thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.